You carry one in your pocket every single day, but you probably don't know that its story begins 4,000 years ago, inside the tomb of a pharaoh. That little piece of metal hides far more secrets than you'd ever guess. And it all began with a problem that every single human being understands. Picture ancient Egypt. You own a granary full of grain, and inside it sits your entire fortune. Your survival, the supply your family depends on for the coming year. You can't guard it alone, day and night. You need something that will close the door for you, something that tells the owner apart from the thief. And what the Egyptians came up with would last for thousands of years. Around 2,000 years before our era, the Egyptians invented the first known lock. It looked nothing like what we know today. It was made entirely of wood, large, heavy, and bolted to the door. Inside sat a row of wooden pins that dropped into holes and jammed the bolt in place. And the key? It looked like a giant toothbrush, a wooden rod with pins sticking out of one end. You slid it into the lock from below, lifted the pins, and the bolt slid free. A simple mechanism, but a brilliant principle. D-match. Only the right pattern of pins would open the door. Those first keys could be half a meter long. Carrying one was a hassle. You had to haul a wooden rod over your shoulder like a walking stick. Discretion was out of the question. Everyone could see you were off to open something valuable. But before the key shrinks into a small metal object in your pocket, many centuries still have to pass. The Greeks took the idea and pushed it further. Their keys looked like sickles, curved rods with a hook on the end, which you pushed through a hole in the door end, groping blindly, tried to pry the bolt loose. Effective? Not really. Secure? Even less so. But it was the Romans who pulled off the real revolution, by swapping wood for metal. For the first time, locks and keys were forged from iron and bronze, and that changed everything. They became smaller, stronger, and far harder to break. The Romans also invented something we still carry today, the key on a ring. Yes, keys could be so small that Romans wore them as rings on their fingers. It was a key and a status symbol all at once. If you wore a ring like that, it meant you owned something worth locking away. It was the Romans who introduced the ward, metal barriers inside the lock that blocked any key of the wrong shape. To open it, the key needed notches cut to match those wards perfectly, and the smallest deviation from the pattern slammed the path shut like the iron fist of a guard. It was the first real combination, the prototype of what we now call a security code. After the fall of the Roman Empire came the Dark Ages, dark for locks too. But that doesn't mean the locksmiths were sitting idle. Medieval craftsmen didn't invent new mechanisms. They bet on something else, perfecting the art of deception, building locks with false keyholes, hidden traps, end springs that mercilessly snapped shut on a thief's hand. Sam locks had several keyholes, and only one of them was real. Keys became genuine works of art, Gothic, richly ornamented, with openwork heads that mirrored the stained glass end windows of cathedrals, reflecting all the pride of their maker. The more intricate the key, the higher the owner's status. In the Middle Ages, locksmithing was one of the most respected crafts in all of Europe. But beauty has nothing to do with security, and even the most gorgeously decorated locks could still be opened by force, by cunning, or by the plain patience of a skilled burglar. A true breakthrough was missing. And this is exactly where the story gets really interesting. The year is 1778. An Englishman named Robert Barron patents a double-acting lever lock. To open it, each lever has to be raised to exactly the right height. Too little won't work, and too much won't either. Simple, but revolutionary. 6 years later, in 1784, Joseph Bramah unveils a lock he calls impossible to pick. He places it in the window of his London shop with a sign, 200 guineas to anyone who can break it. 200 guineas back then was a small fortune. Bramah's lock stood undefeated for 67 years. It wasn't until 1851 that an American named Alfred Hobbs finally cracked it during the Great Exhibition in London. It took him more than 50 hours. Bramah lost the bet, but he proved that a well-designed lock could resist the very best for generations. In 1848, a man steps onto the stage whose name you already know, even if you don't realize it. Linus Yale Sr. builds the first modern pin tumbler lock. And where does he draw his inspiration? From ancient Egypt, the same pins, the same principle, but now made of metal and shrunk down small. His son, Linus Yale Jr., perfects his father's invention in 1861. He creates the cylinder lock wife, a flat serrated key, exactly the kind you carry in your pocket today. A design more than 160 years old, and it has barely changed at all. The 20th century brings a new revolution. In 1979, the Norwegian inventor Tor Sørnes builds the first keycard lock for hotels. The reason? The singer Connie Francis was assaulted in her hotel room. Sørnes decided that hotel keys had to change. In the 80s, hotels switched to magnetic stripe cards. In the 90s, chip cards appear. And at the start of the 21st century, in comes RFID technology. Contactless, touchless, invisible. The key stops being a physical object. It becomes information. Today, your phone unlocks your car, your apartment, your office, and your hotel room. Face recognition opens safes. A fingerprint replaces a serrated piece of metal. The key vanishes from your pocket, but the principle stays exactly the same. Something has to prove that you are who you claim to be. And here we reach the heart of it. The key was never really a piece of wood or metal at all. From the very beginning, it was an answer to one of the deepest human questions. What is mine? And what is yours? So the next time you turn a lock or hold your phone up to a reader, think of that Egyptian granary from 4,000 years ago, of the Roman ring on a legionnaire's finger, of Bramah's lock that stood for 67 years, and of the fact that you carry in your pocket one of the oldest inventions in human history. Subscribe so you don't miss the next story of an object you know, but don't really know at all, because the key isn't an ordinary object. It's 4,000 years of a single promise that your things are safe, even when you are not there.